about the last time you tried to speak a new language in front of like a big group of people. Your palms sweat, your heart races. It feels like you are standing on this brightly lit stage and everyone in the audience is just, waiting for you to make a mistake.
Oh, yeah. It is a terrifying feeling. We've all been there.
Right. So imagine putting your 6-year-old child on that exact same stage. Terrifying, right? But what if we took them off the stage and, well, put them in a sandbox instead? Welcome to today's deep dive. We are completely tearing up the traditional language textbooks today.
We really are. Today's sources provide this amazing comprehensive guide on learning English at home with your children.
Yes, and we are looking at how practical, simple, everyday activities can basically transform language learning. Taking it from a stressful chore into a really natural, fun part of your family life. So let's unpack this. I am super excited.
I am too, because this is a profound shift in how we think about education. I mean, we are moving entirely away from the pressure of exams and formal lessons.
Goodbye to the desks and the red pens, right?
Exactly. Instead, the material focuses on routines, play, and emotional connection. Because when you change the environment, you actually change how a child's brain receives information.
Okay, so before we jump into the exact how-to of teaching, the vocabulary, the household routines, all the fun games, we first need to establish why the home environment is uniquely powerful. And that brings me back to my sandbox analogy.
All right, the sandbox versus the stage.
Yeah. A home is a sandbox, not a stage. It's a safe place to play, to experiment, to build things up and knock them down, completely without the pressure of performing perfectly.
And that feeling of safety, it is actually a biological requirement for learning. Linguists talk about this concept called the affective filter.
The affective filter?
Yeah. To put it simply for you, the listener, imagine an invisible wall inside your child's brain.
Yeah.
When a child, or, well, an adult for that matter, feels anxious, stressed, or afraid of looking foolish, that wall just goes straight up.
Wow. Okay.
And the brain literally blocks new words and grammar from sticking.
So fear doesn't just make a student quiet, it physically stops the learning process in its tracks.
Yes, it shuts it down. But at home, snuggled on the couch with you, a child feels completely secure. So that invisible wall comes down.
That makes so much sense.
Right. When children are free from the fear of making mistakes, they naturally take more risks with speaking. They try out new sounds. They do not mind sounding silly. And that willingness to take risks is exactly what accelerates language acquisition.
Let me play devil's advocate for a minute, though. Let's say you're practicing English at home and your child makes a glaring mistake. Like, they say, I go to the park yesterday instead of I went.
Sure, very common.
If I don't correct them because I want to keep that invisible wall down, won't they just learn bad grammar permanently? I mean, that's a big fear for parents.
It is a huge concern, but the advice for beginners here is incredibly freeing. You really should not focus on strict correction.
Really? Just let it slide?
Well, not exactly. Instead, the sources recommend a technique called recasting. You use gentle encouragement.
Yeah.
If your child says, I go to the park, you do not stop them and say, no, that's wrong.
Right, because that puts the wall right back up.
Exactly. You simply smile and reply with the correct version in a very natural way. You say, oh, you went to the park. That sounds like so much fun. What did you do when you went to the park?
Oh, I see. So I am not making them feel bad about the mistake at all. I am just giving them a clear model of the right way to say it while, keeping the actual conversation alive.
You nailed it. And there's a psychological mechanic behind why this works better. It has to do with how memory functions.
Okay, tell me more.
When you sit a child down and force them to memorize a grammar rule, that takes a lot of hard, conscious effort. But recasting builds implicit memory.
Implicit memory.
Yeah. Implicit memory is how we all learn our first language, just by hearing the correct patterns over and over until they sound completely natural to us. You are building their intuition without ever giving them that sting of failure.
That is brilliant. Okay, so we have established the safe zone. The wall is down. But how do we actually implement this learning if we aren't using a textbook? How do we do it without overwhelming the child, or honestly, without overwhelming the busy parent?
Which is the real challenge, right?
Absolutely. Well, our sources suggest transforming everyday routines, and I really love this specific concept from the reading. Think of the everyday objects in your house as physical flashcards, just scattered around waiting to be used.
Yes. Your brain learns so much better when it connects a new word to something you can actually touch and feel.
Right, something tangible.
Exactly.
Right.
When a child learns a word from a vocabulary list on paper, it is abstract. It is literally just a sound. But when you hand a child a spoon at the breakfast table and say the word spoon, you are engaging multiple senses.
It's cold metal, it has a specific shape, you eat with it.
Precisely. Their brain anchors the English word to a real tactile experience.
So we are tying the language to physical reality. That makes perfect sense. Let's give you, the listener, some practical tools right now. Let's talk about using English during daily routines. Mornings are great for this.
Oh, mornings are perfect. You wake up, and instead of just silently going through the motions, you narrate what is happening.
Okay, let's do a quick role play to demonstrate how simple and, low pressure this can be. I will be the child and you be the parent.
Sounds good.
I'll even pretend to be super sleepy.
Perfect. Here we go. Good morning. It's time to wake up. Let's open the curtains.
Good morning. It's sunny outside.
Yes, it is. Okay, time to brush your teeth. Where is your toothbrush?
Here it is.
Great job. Let's put some toothpaste on it.
Okay, notice how we did not use any complicated grammar there at all.
Done.
It is just basic, useful vocabulary.
Hmm.
Wake up, curtains, toothbrush.
And the physical context does most of the heavy lifting. Even if the child does not know the word curtains, when you say it while physically pulling the fabric back, their brain makes the connection instantly.
Mealtime seems like another huge opportunity. The sources highlight the dinner table as literally the absolute best setting to teach polite expressions.
It really is.
If you want your kids to learn how to say please and thank you naturally, your kitchen is your classroom. Let's do another role play.
Okay, I'm the parent again. Dinner is ready. Can you help me set the table? We need plates, forks, and spoons.
Okay, can I have some water, please?
Yes. Here you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean, that is textbook, beautiful, everyday English. If a family practices that quick exchange every single night, those phrases just become completely automatic.
Yeah, the child doesn't even have to translate in their head anymore. The kitchen, the bathroom, the bedroom, they all become these interactive language zones where you are learning new vocabulary every day without even realizing it.
And I want to add a quick speaking tip for parents here, because I know many parents feel insecure about their own English pronunciation.
That is so common.
They worry, like, oh, I have an accent, or I might say something slightly wrong and ruin my kid's English.
Right.
But the advice here is clear. Keep it simple and speak confidently. You do not need a perfect native accent. What your child needs is clear communication. Break the words down, make eye contact, and emphasize the key words. Like, can you pass the salt, please?
And the physical context rescues you again there. The salt is right there on the table. So even if your pronunciation isn't flawless, the meaning is crystal clear.
Exactly. Okay, so we've got the morning and evening routines mapped out. But let's be honest, a kid's brain is naturally wired for novelty and excitement.
Oh, absolutely.
If every single morning is just the exact same toothbrush script, they're eventually going to tune it out. They'll just get bored. So how do we introduce chaos and fun back into the mix so they stay fully engaged?
Well, this brings us to immersion through play and media. Play is basically a child's full-time job. It is how they make sense of the world around them.
Right.
So integrating English into their playtime is highly effective. The sources strongly recommend using games, songs, storybooks, and educational cartoons.
Okay, I am going to push back a little on this next part.
Let's hear it.
The sources talk about watching educational cartoons in English, but let's look at the reality of parenting. Usually, parents put on a cartoon so they can go fold laundry or answer an email in peace.
True.
Are you really asking them to sit and actively watch these shows with their kids? Doesn't that just turn into passive screen time? If they just stare at the screen like a zombie, how is that actually learning a language?
That is a very valid critique.
Yeah.
If you use the television purely as a babysitter, you leave the room for an hour and the child just passively stares at bright colors, the language learning is going to be incredibly minimal.
Right, nothing sticking.
Exactly. And the sources acknowledge this trap. Their suggested compromise is a method called co-viewing. You don't have to do it for 2 hours a day, but pick one short 10-minute episode and sit down to watch it with them.
So what does co-viewing actually look like? Am I just sitting on the couch silently watching animated dogs rescue a cat?
No, not at all. You treat the screen like a conversation starter. You interact with the show. You might pause it and ask simple questions. Like, oh, look, what color is the car? Or where's the dog going now? You can repeat fun catchphrases together. It completely changes the dynamic.
It turns the screen from a passive distraction into a shared interactive activity between you and your child.
Exactly. The TV isn't just talking at the kid. The TV is sparking a real conversation.
I love that.
And you pair that media strategy with interactive games and songs. Songs are brilliant teaching tools because they use rhythm and melody, which act like superglue for human memory.
Hmm.
Think about a classic children's song like Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes.
Oh, sure, because you're physically touching your head, touching your shoulders. It gets your whole body moving.
Yes. There is a scientific term for this, total physical response, or TPR. It relies on a concept called embodied cognition.
Embodied cognition, that sounds intense.
It just means that when a child moves their body while learning a new word, they are tying that memory directly to their motor cortex. Physical movement binds the memory much deeper into the brain than just listening to a word does. The multisensory immersion is incredibly powerful for retention.
That makes a lot of sense when you put it that way. Now, what about reading? Reading English storybooks together is brought up over and over in our sources as a major strategy.
Yes, huge strategy.
But as a parent, when I'm reading aloud, how should I sound? Should I just read it at my normal, everyday speaking speed?
For beginners, you should definitely slow down. Enunciate your words very clearly. And here's a highly practical tip parents can use immediately.
Okay.
Treat the book like a map that you are exploring together.
A map.
Yeah, do not just read the words on the page straight through and turn to the next one. Stop and point to the picture. Say, look, it's a big red apple. Can you point to the apple?
Oh, I see. And changing your voice for different characters probably helps too, right? Like it keeps their attention, but also models different types of intonation.
Absolutely. By exaggerating the sounds slightly, you are modeling clear pronunciation for your child. You give them a very clear, distinct audio target to mimic, which really builds their speaking confidence.
Okay, we have a lot of fantastic tools now. We have the safe sandbox environment, we have the daily physical routines, we have co-viewing cartoons, and we have interactive storybooks.
It's a great toolkit.
It is. But starting this all sounds amazing on, like, a quiet, relaxing Sunday afternoon. But life happens. Starting a fun new routine is easy. Keeping it going long-term when life gets chaotic is the real challenge.
Oh, without a doubt.
So what does this all mean for the busy parent? You know, the listener who commutes, works long hours, barely has time to cook dinner, let alone manage a comprehensive bilingual household.
This is perhaps the most crucial section of our deep dive. The sources are very pragmatic about the heavy demands on modern parents. The secret to sustaining momentum is not to block out a full hour of English study time every single day.
Because who has an hour?
Exactly. Trying to force an hour of study into a busy schedule is a guaranteed recipe for burnout. The true secret is building micro habits.
When you say micro habits, my mind immediately goes to habit stacking, like attaching the English practice to a chore or an activity I'm already forced to do every day, like driving them to school. Is that what the sources mean?
That is exactly the mechanism. A micro habit is a tiny behavior that seamlessly integrates into your existing schedule. You do not need to find extra time. You simply use the time you already have differently.
Okay, give me an example.
Well, you used a great one. You already have to drive your child to school. Let's say it is a 10-minute car ride. That car ride is now your dedicated time to play an English song and sing along, or to play a simple game of I Spy in English. I spy with my little eye something blue.
It's the sky.
Right. Or consider bath time. You are already giving your child a bath every evening. You can use that exact time to teach them body parts. Wash your arms, wash your legs, wash your face.
Wow, so it takes 0 extra minutes out of your busy day.
0. But it builds long-term study habits because it happens consistently, day after day, without fail.
That is so relieving to hear. 5 minutes a day of focused, fun connection really does beat an hour of stressful, forced studying on the weekend. The consistency is what wires the brain.
And we see the proof of this in the case studies provided in our materials. When we look at real examples of children's progress in the home environment, the success stories are just incredibly inspiring.
Yeah, there was one story that really stood out to me.
A family with the 2 working parents.
Yes, let's talk about them. Both parents worked full-time, they were exhausted, and felt they had absolutely 0 time to teach English.
Right, and they initially tried sitting their son down with a traditional workbook on weekends, and it always ended in frustration and tears.
I think a huge portion of parents listening can relate to that exact scenario, the weekend workbook battle.
Oh, absolutely. So they completely changed their approach. They threw out the workbook and decided to implement just 2 simple micro habits.
Just 2?
Just 2. First, every evening they spent 5 minutes setting the dinner table using only English.
Yeah.
Very similar to the role play we did earlier. Second, every night, right before bed, they read 1 short English storybook together, pointing at the pictures. That was it. maybe 15 minutes total per day.
And what actually happened? Did 15 minutes a day really move the needle?
Within a few months, a massive shift occurred. The parents noticed their 6-year-old was playing in his room alone, and he was naturally narrating what his toy cars were doing in English.
No way!
Yes. He was saying things like, "The car's going fast, stop, turn around." He wasn't prompted by his parents. He wasn't in a formal lesson.
That is wild. He just did it on his own.
Yes. The language had simply become a living, breathing part of his daily reality. Because his parents had normalized English in a low-pressure home environment, he began using it spontaneously.
That is the dream, right?
And there are other examples, too. Children suddenly using polite English expressions at the grocery store or singing English songs while tying their shoes.
That spontaneous use of the language is just amazing. When a child learns to navigate their daily household conversations in English, asking for food, expressing how they feel, talking about their toys, they are building a foundation of functional fluency.
Yes, functional fluency is exactly what it is.
They will carry that confidence for the rest of their lives. It also sustains their motivation to learn because it never feels like work. It just feels like life. They associate the English language with warmth, playtime, and connection with their parents.
And it builds a massive amount of confidence in speaking. Because they practice in a safe environment, they don't develop that anxiety we talked about at the beginning. They don't freeze up when they have to speak.
This has been such a practical, eye-opening deep dive. Let's summarize the most useful tips we've covered today for everyone listening so you can start using them immediately. First, remember the fundamental mindset shift. Your home is a fear-free sandbox, not a stage. Encourage your children to speak without fear of mistakes. When they do make an error, use gentle recasting, repeating their sentence correctly, instead of harsh corrections to build that implicit memory.
Second, use what you already have. Transform your daily routines into language opportunities. Use everyday household objects as physical flashcards to anchor words to reality. Practice simple greetings in the morning and polite expressions at the dinner table.
Third, keep it genuinely fun. Kids need novelty. Create a joyful environment using interactive media. Don't just use the TV as a babysitter. Co-watch educational cartoons and spark conversations. Sing songs that use physical movement to lock in memory, and read storybooks like you're exploring a map together.
And finally, rely on micro-habits. If you have a busy, exhausting schedule, please do not stress about finding hours of free time. Attach 5 minutes of English practice to things you already do every single day, like driving to school or bath time. Consistency is far more powerful than intensity.
To you, our listener, we really want to encourage you to take these strategies and start practicing English with your family every single day. Remember, perfection is absolutely not the goal here. Connection is. The time you spend laughing over a mispronounced word or singing a silly song while driving is exactly when the deepest learning is happening.
The messy, joyful moments are the ones that actually build fluency.
So step off the stage, get into the sandbox, and start playing. But before we leave you today, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over.
Oh, I like a provocative thought.
We have spent this entire discussion talking about how this pressure-free environment benefits your child's brain. But what if, by creating this fun, relaxed English learning environment for your kids, you as the parent end up unlocking a completely new level of confidence and fluency in your own English skills?
Wow. Yeah, when the pressure is taken off the child, the pressure is taken off the parent, too. You're learning right alongside them. It is a very interesting possibility.
Something to think about next time you are setting the dinner table. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we will see you next time.